Hey guys, what's up? MadSeason here, back with another Legion class guide. This is an ongoing series where I go over the core gameplay of each class and spec in the Legion Alpha, and sort of give you an idea of how they're played and how their core mechanics work. In this video, we'll be going over the Subtlety Rogue. Like with every other class this expansion, Subtlety Rogue saw some big changes. It's not as extreme as combat specs transition to Outlaw, but it's still pretty significant. You still have a heavy focus around stealth and ambushing your enemies, but a lot of abilities have been removed, added, or reshuffled. As usual, let's get our disclaimers out of the way. The Rogue is not my main class on Live. I did a lot of training on both Live and Legion to get a solid understanding of how the spec plays and how it's changing for this expansion, but keep in mind that this is from a very casual Rogue's perspective. Just something to remember when I talk about a spell or give my opinion on something. And by all means, if you catch any errors, feel free to let me know so I can patch them up with an annotation. Also keep in mind that this is all beta gameplay, so things that you like or don't like are always subject to change. As I mentioned, a lot of spells have been changed, removed, or added. I'll go over all of them one by one in the spell book, and I'll also show you them all in action so you can get a good idea of how the spec plays to see if you would like it or not. I'll sort of go over these in order of importance, putting a higher priority on the bread and butter abilities that make up the core of the subtlety spec. And at the end of the video, I'll show you some real fights and narrate them a bit so you can see how all of it comes together. And as always, as I'm going through these, keep an eye on the bottom right hand corner of the screen if you want to see the tooltips for the exact numbers and such. First up, we have our classic backstab. This saw a big quality of life change, and that's the fact that you don't need to be at your sides or behind your target to use it anymore. Instead, now you just get a 30% damage bonus if you're behind your target when you use it. It costs 35 energy and gives you 1 combo point just like in Live, and the actual positioning for the 30% bonus damage is pretty generous. Even though it says you need to be behind your target to get it, you get the bonus if you're hitting him from the sides as well. Next up, we have a combo point spender, Nightblade. This costs 1 to 5 combo points, and it deals shadow damage over time to your target. Both its damage and duration are increased the more points you spend on it. It also costs 25 energy, and any melee attack you make against the target while it's active slows their movement speed by 50% for 8 seconds. This is one of our 2 baseline slows. We no longer have crippling poison, or any poison for that matter, so for PvP this will be really important just for the slow so we can stay on our targets. One thing that's kind of rough is Nightblade is a magic effect, so if your enemy is smart, they can just dispel it and kite you. So it's a tricky situation. We do have a talent choice that helps out a bit that I'll go over later though. Next up we have our more direct combo point spender, Eviscerate. This costs 1 to 5 combo points, 35 energy, and it deals a varying amount of damage to your target depending on how many points you spent on it. Nightblade's overall damage per combo point is better, so you'll want to have priority on that. You'll just be using this when Nightblade is already up on your target. Next, let's get into the more juicy stuff. We have some big abilities based off stealth, so I'll start with that, I guess. This has changed a little. It now has a 2-second cooldown as opposed to the 6 seconds in Draenor, but we also lost the 6-second 10% damage bonus after breaking it. Next up, we have our main stealth ability, Shadow Strike. This requires stealth to use, and when you use it, you teleport behind your target, dealing a heavy amount of physical damage and generating 1 combo point. It has a 25-yard range and it costs 40 energy. So this is sort of a combination of Shadow Step and a beefier backstab. One thing to note is that if you're already in melee range, it looks like you don't get the teleport. I'm not sure if that's intended or not. It could be intentional so that your perspective isn't switched every time you use it, which could disorient you. It's also buffed by our next stealth-only ability, Symbols of Death. This costs 35 energy, and it increases the damage you deal by 20% for 35 seconds. And it also causes your next Shadow Strike to be a guaranteed crit. It has a 10-second cooldown, and it's also off the global cooldown. This is a really big focus of the spec. It's something you'll want to keep up all the time by incorporating abilities such as Vanish and Shadow Dance into your rotation. Speaking of which, next up we have Shadow Dance. This has changed a bit as well. This now has 3 charges, a duration of 3 seconds, and it allows you to use any stealth ability while it's active. This is how you're going to get that 100% uptime on Symbols of Death. Each charge has a 1-minute cooldown, but you also get charges from the Deepening Shadows passive, which I'll cover in a bit. So it's a really strong spell, but the way it's implemented is a little awkward right now. Currently we don't get a new action bar when we activate this, which really clutters up our key bindings. So hopefully they'll fix that soon, or there'll be an add-on to make it a little less awkward. As for Deepening Shadows, this gives your finishing moves a 5% chance per combo point spent to give you a charge of Shadow Dance. So that's 25% for a full 5-point finisher. With the current rate that you use finishers, its 25% chance is plenty to allow you to Shadow Dance enough to keep a 100% uptime on Symbols of Death. So like I mentioned, this whole Shadow Dance, Symbols of Death, and Shadow Strike combo is a big part of the subtlety spec. There's a heavy focus on stealth, and you can set up some pretty good burst if you line things up correctly. Next up, we have Cheap Shot. This is only usable while stealthed, and it stuns your target for 4 seconds, and it costs 40 energy. It also gives you 2 combo points, but it looks like we lost the 100% armor penetration for 10 seconds that it had in Draenor. Next up we have our AoE, Shuriken Storm. This is sort of similar to Fan of Knives. It costs 35 energy, and it deals a very light amount of damage to all enemies within 10 yards of you. Unlike Fan of Knives though, it also gives you 1 combo point per target hit. But since we don't have poisons anymore, we lost that bonus application chance that we used to get through Fan of Knives. Believe it or not, this is pretty much the extent of our AoE this expansion. The best we can really do is spam this to generate combo points, and then just Nightblade everything. The combo point generation is really good, so it is possible, but the damage itself is really far behind compared to most other specs this expansion. Anyways, we also have Shuriken Toss, which used to be a talent actually. This is now baseline, and it deals a light amount of damage to a single enemy. It has a 30-yard range, it costs 40 energy, and it rewards 1 combo point. So it's just something to have for pulling or when you can't get into melee range. It is worth noting that it no longer has the increased auto attack range like it has in Draenor, so I guess that's the trade-off for having it as a baseline skill now. Next up we have our DPS cooldown, Shadow Blades. This causes your auto attacks to deal additional shadow damage, your abilities to generate 1 additional combo point for 15 seconds, and it has a 3-minute cooldown. Most specs have these 3-minute cooldowns now, so this is pretty standard. It does give you some really good burst if you combine it with some shadow dances. Subtlety is also seeing a return this expansion. This isn't an ability, but I think it's worth being mentioned since it's so readily available. Some of you veterans already know about this. It's a consumable, and it instantly restores 100 energy at a 5-minute cooldown, and you can buy it from an NPC in your class hall for 1 silver and 20 copper. You can also buy the recipe for it from another vendor. For our defensive cooldowns, first up we have our classic Evasion, which increases our dodge chance by 100% for 10 seconds with a 2-minute cooldown. Not much to say here, just a really solid defensive cooldown to have. We also have Cloak of Shadows, which is our defensive cooldown against spell effects. This removes and makes you immune to all harmful spell effects for 5 seconds, and it has a cooldown of 1.5 minutes. So as always, we have 2 separate cooldowns for spells and non-spells. And we of course still have our getaway spell, Vanish, which causes you to stealth and prevents you from unstealthing for 3 seconds after using it in case you have a dot on you or something. It breaks all movement impairing effects when you use it, and it has a 2-minute cooldown. This also functions as an offensive cooldown because we can of course use Symbols of Death and Shadow Strike after using it. And we also have Feint. This costs 20 energy, and it makes you take 50% less damage from AoE attacks for 5 seconds. It can also still be improved to give you a flat 30% reduction in damage taken via the Elusiveness talent, which I'll go over later. Next up we have a heal, Crimson Vial. When you use this, you drink an alchemical concoction that heals you for 30% of your maximum health over 6 seconds. It costs 30 energy, it has a 30-second cooldown, and something important that it doesn't mention is that it doesn't break stealth, so it can be a way to reset a fight. We also still have our crowd control, Blind. This disorients a single target for 1 minute, and if the afflicted target takes any damage, it'll break. It has a 15-yard range and a 2-minute cooldown. And we also still have our classic Kidney Shot. This costs 1 to 5 combo points, and it stuns your target anywhere from 2 to 6 seconds depending on how many points you spent on it. It costs 25 energy, and it has a 20-second cooldown. As for our mobility, first up we have our classic Sprint. This increases your movement speed by 70% for 8 seconds, and it has a 1-minute cooldown. It is of course usable while stealthed, and it won't break it. And it turns into a DPS cooldown via the Flickering Shadows trait, which causes you to vanish 3 seconds after using Sprint if you don't take any damage. We also have Shadow Step, which is unchanged from Draenor except for the fact that it's now baseline. This instantly teleports you behind your target and increases your movement speed by 70% for 2 seconds. It has a 25-yard range and a 30-second cooldown. And something that a lot of people don't know about, and this is true for live as well, is the fact that you can also use it on friendly targets, which can be really handy. And we also have some mobility from our Fleet-Footed passive, which increases your movement speed by 15% at all times, and you also take reduced damage from falling. Our Mastery is unchanged. It's still Executioner, which increases the damage of your finishing moves as you stack it. It's strong, but I personally prefer Masteries that are a little more interesting, like the Windwalker Monk one for example. I think it's a missed opportunity when Masteries are just straight up damage increases to something. It's a chance to add another element to the spec, and Subtleties is pretty boring I think. Anyways, we also still have Relentless Strikes. This causes your finishing moves to have a 20% chance per combo point to generate 40 energy. This has been a staple for rogues ever since vanilla. It keeps the flow going so you don't have that downtime after using a finisher. Lastly, we have Shadow Techniques, which causes your auto attacks to have a chance to generate a combo point. It doesn't say the actual percentage, but it's really high I think, maybe around 50 to 80%. The only thing that really limits it is the internal cooldown, which seems to be around 5 seconds. So as long as you have 100% uptime on your target, just think of this as one combo point generated every 5 seconds. So not too bad. And that's pretty much it for all of the important stuff anyways. Everything else I didn't mention are still functionally the same pretty much, maybe just percentage or cooldown changes. I'll mouse over them here quickly and you can pause the video if you want to see the exact numbers, but abilities I haven't mentioned yet are Distract, Kick, Pick Lock, Pickpocket, Sap, and Tricks of the Trade. That's every ability and passive. If I didn't list anything from Draenor, it was either moved to talents, removed entirely, or they just haven't put it back yet. Next up, I'll go over the revamped talents, and just like the abilities and passives, I'll go over every single talent here and show you them in action. I'll also have a link to the talent calculator in the description if you want to see them for yourself. First up, for the level 15 tier, we have Master of Subtlety. This gives you a 10% increase in damage while in stealth and for 6 seconds after breaking stealth. So just a nice bonus to have here. It is worth noting that this works with Shadow Dance, which is huge. Next we have Weapon Master, which gives your abilities a 6% chance to hit your target twice each time they deal damage. Now that multi-strike is removed, this is the closest you're going to get, although the 6% chance is a little low, I think. A 10% chance would be a little more reasonable because as it stands right now, it's hard to choose this over Master of Subtlety, especially considering how much uptime we can have with that using our Shadow Dance. Anyways, lastly for the level 15 tier, we have Gloomblade, which replaces Backstab. This deals slightly more damage than Backstab, not counting the 30% bonus you get by using it behind your target. It also deals shadow damage, so it's not something that's reduced by armor, which is important to consider. It costs 35 energy, and it gives you 1 combo point just like Backstab. So this is a good choice for fights where you can't always be behind or at the sides of your target. For the level 30 tier, we have Night Stalker. This gives you a 20% movement speed and a 15% damage increase whenever Stealth or Shadow Dance is active. If you take this along with Master of Subtlety, Shadow Dance really starts turning into a big DPS cooldown. It makes one of the centerpieces of the spec even stronger, which is nice. Next we have Subterfuge. This allows you to use your stealth abilities 3 seconds after breaking it, and it increases the duration of Shadow Dance by 2 seconds. This is really powerful as well. It allows you to open up the fight with 4 Shadow Strikes, and the 2-second increase to Shadow Dance is huge. And lastly for the level 30 tier we have Shadow Focus. This makes your abilities cost 20 less energy while Stealth or Shadow Dance is active. This brings Sap to 28 energy, Cheap Shot to 32, Symbols of Death to 28, and Shadow Strike to 32. To put that into perspective, your max energy is still 100, so it's not too bad. Your DPS opener is usually going to be a Symbol and a Shadow Strike, so that goes from 75 energy to 60. And for your Shadow Dance, assuming you just dumped combo points, you'll be able to get a Symbol and 3 Shadow Strikes off. Having Shadow Focus brings that cost from 155 energy to 124. For the level 45 tier we have Deeper Stratagem. This increases your maximum combo points to 6, and your finishing moves now consume up to 6 and they deal 20% increased damage. This synergizes really well with our mastery because remember that gives us a flat damage increase to our finishers. So just a lot of damage from this talent I think. Next up we have Anticipation. This increases your maximum combo points to a whopping 8, and finishers still consume the normal 5. This can be good for burst. Remember our finishers are big damage, so with this you can stock up to 8 combo points, and then eviscerate and backstab twice into another eviscerate. It's also a good talent if you're new to the spec and you're having trouble capping out on combo points. If you're not careful, your Shadow Techniques passive can push you over the cap, which causes you to waste some damage, so this is a nice talent to help prevent that a bit. It's a good learning tool if you just picked up the class, I think. Anyways, lastly for the level 45 tier we have Vigor. This increases your maximum energy by 50, bringing it to 150, and also increases your energy regeneration by 10%. So it's sort of similar to Anticipation in a way. The increased cap allows for more burst, while the increased regeneration allows for more sustained. And once again, the increased energy cap can be beneficial if you're new to the class and you find yourself capping out too much. For the level 60 tier we have Soothing Darkness. This causes you to heal for 3% of your maximum life every second while stealth is active. If you remember, I talked about how Crimson Vial can be a good way to reset the fight. This takes it to a whole nother level and is going to be really good for PvP. In solo fights you can whittle down your opponent, Vanish, Crimson Vial, and Sap until you're at full health. And it also works with Shadow Dance, giving you 9% health without Subterfuge, and a whopping 15% with it, so it synergizes really well with that. So just an incredibly strong talent, I think. Next up for the level 60 tier we have Elusiveness, which I covered a bit earlier. This causes your feint to also reduce damage from non-area of effect skills by 30% for 5 seconds. Honestly, I never cared for this talent. To take the most advantage out of it, I feel like I have to have it up all the time, and using Feint every 5 seconds just isn't fun for me because it's not even off the global cooldown. Don't get me wrong, it's really powerful, but for me it's just not very fun to use. Anyways, lastly for the level 60 tier we have Cheat Death. This is your second life. Any fatal attack made against you instead reduces you to 7% of your maximum life, and for 3 seconds afterwards you take 95% reduced damage, and it can only happen once every 2 minutes. So 3 different choices for survivability here. My personal favorite is Soothing Darkness though. For the level 75 tier we have Strike from the Shadows. This causes your Shadow Strike to also stun your target for 2 seconds, and in PvP it dazes players for 5 seconds instead. The stun of course has diminishing returns, but it's still nice to have. The slow in PvP is great too, because remember our only slow are melee attacks through Nightblade, and that's dispellable, so it covers up a pretty big weak spot, which is good. Next up we have Prey on the Weak, which causes enemies disabled by your Blind, Cheap Shot, Sap, or Kidney Shot to also take 10% increased damage from all sources. So not too bad, it makes us a little more valuable in dungeons and PvP. Lastly for the level 75 tier we have Tangled Shadow, which increases Nightblade's slow effect by 20%, bringing it to 70%. I don't think this one is too useful in PvP against smart players because they're just going to dispel Nightblade anyways. I'd much rather take Strike from the Shadows if I'm looking to improve my slows in PvP. For PvE though, I'm sure it could be handy in some situations. Anyways, for the level 90 tier we have Premeditation. This causes Cheap Shot and Shadow Strike to generate 1 additional combo point. It just adds more value to our already amazing Shadow Dance. I think it has good synergy with the Subterfuge talent if you took that, because you'll be able to get more Shadow Strikes out per Shadow Dance. Next up we have Alacrity. This gives your finishing moves a 20% chance per combo point spent to give you 1% haste for 20 seconds, stacking up to 25 times. This is incredibly good for raiding. The 20 seconds is plenty enough to keep this up on even high mobility fights where you may not have 100% uptime on your target. It's really hard to beat, I think. Anyways, lastly for the level 90 tier we have Enveloping Shadows. This is another finisher. It costs 25 energy and it generates 1 combo point every 3 seconds, lasting anywhere from 6 to 30 seconds depending on how many points you spent on it. If you look at the actual duration here, you can see that it gives you twice the number of combo points you spent on it. If you spent 1 point, it gives you 2 over 6 seconds. If you spent 2, you get 4 over 12 seconds, and so on until the 5 point cost, which gives you 10 points. And if you took Deeper Stratagem, the 6 point cost gives you 12 over 36 seconds. Taking both this and our Shadow Techniques passive into consideration can make our combo point generation really tricky, and it's really easy to go over the cap if you're not super careful. But I do think it's really strong in the right hands if you're on point with your combo point management. I'm sure add-ons will help out too. First up for the level 100 tier we have Master of Shadows. This gives you 30 energy whenever you enter Stealth or activate Shadow Dance. It's a nice boost to have. Typically the first thing you're going to do when you're Stealth is use Symbols of Death, which cost 35 energy. This sort of negates that and lets you spend your energy on actual damaging attacks. Next up we have Marked for Death. This marks your target, instantly generating 5 combo points. It has a 1 minute cooldown, but if the target dies within 1 minute, the cooldown is reset. This gives you some really good burst, and it's probably the go-to choice for PvP. Lastly, we have Death from Above. It's another finisher. It costs 1 to 5 combo points, and it instantly deals a medium amount of damage to all enemies within 7 yards of you, and then you leap into the air and eviscerate your target on the way down, dealing 50% increased damage of your normal eviscerate. It costs 25 energy, has a 15-yard range, and a 20-second cooldown. So this very minorly helps out our AoE situation. It's nothing really meaningful AoE-wise, but for single target it's solid, and because it's a finisher, it's of course affected by your Mastery and Deeper Stratagem if you took that. And that's it for all of the talents, as of this build anyways. Next up we'll talk about the artifacts for the Subtlety Rogue, and those are the Fangs of the Devourer. The artifacts themselves have an ability called Gorma's Bite. This has a 1 minute cooldown, and it deals a medium amount of shadow damage to a single target, slows their movement speed by 60% for 8 seconds, grants 30 energy over 6 seconds, and it also gives you 3 combo points. So not too bad as far as artifact abilities go. One good thing is that the slow that's tied to it isn't dispellable, which helps out with one of our weak points. And these artifacts also have some interesting passives you can unlock. You can find calculators for this all over the place. I'll have a link in the description, but I'll go over the more major ones here. First up we have Akari's Soul. Once you have this, using Cheap Shot or Shadow Strike causes Akari's Soul to appear, and 4 seconds later it deals a medium amount of damage to your target. It's supposed to have a dot tied to it as well, but it's currently bugged out. This does work for every Cheap Shot or Shadow Strike that you do. There's no internal cooldown or anything like that, so it's just some nice bonus damage to have. Next up we have Finality. This causes your Nightblade and Eviscerate spells to make the next use of that finisher to be empowered by your artifacts. Once you use a finisher, they change names accordingly, and they deal about 40% increased damage the next time you use it. They do get empowered every time you use it. Think of it as an invisible buff. It refreshes every time you use that finisher, so in a normal fight, only your first eviscerated Nightblade will deal its normal damage, as long as you have enough uptime to keep up finality. I timed it, and it looks like you have a 30-second window before you lose your finality, so it's plenty of time to keep it up for both finishers as long as you have your rotation down. It even activates from 1-point cast, so it may actually be worth using a 1-point eviscerated Nightblade as your first cast of these just for that 40% boost for the rest of the fight. Next up we have Shadow Nova. This can actually be a nuisance. It deals a very light amount of damage to all nearby enemies when you exit stealth. Honestly, this one seems very weak. The damage is really low, and it'll have a problem of breaking crowd control. It's not a buff that you can click off, and it procs off Shadow Dance, so if you're crowd controlling enemies, you have to be really mindful of your positioning. I think they're going to change this one, because there's been a lot of people giving their feedback about it. And another one I wanted to mention, although it's not a major trait, is Cat-like Reflexes. This increases your dodge by 15% at rank 3, and it also makes you immune to falling damage. This is pretty amazing, even though it doesn't really serve any super important use. It's kind of funny how you can drop from hundreds and hundreds of feet and be perfectly fine. So this is definitely the spec for all of you clumsy people out there. The rest of these are pretty generic, some interesting stuff, but mainly just percentage increases to abilities and such. I'll mouse over these here quickly, and you can pause the video if you want to read them. And like I said, I'll have a link to that calculator in the description if you want to check them out. You don't have to choose between any of these traits, you'll be able to get them all eventually. You just need to get enough artifact power, which you'll get by questing, PvPing, raiding, and so on. And that's it for all of the abilities, talents, and artifact traits, at least for this beta build anyways. I'm sure they'll add more or change some stuff later on, but that's okay because the purpose of this video is just to give you a basic idea of how the spec is played, and that's something that's very unlikely to change as they update the game. Now as usual, let's put all of this together. The only way to get an idea of how the spec is played is to see it in action, so I'll show you some basic fights here and narrate them a bit. Here are some shorter single target fights. For talents I have Gloomblade, since for solo play it can be tough to get that 30% bonus to backstab. I have Subterfuge for the better Shadow Dance and bonus stealth attacks, Vigor for the increased energy and energy regeneration, and Master of Shadows for that energy boost. This is a pretty good setup for solo play and leveling in general. The 150 energy cap is enough to burn through a single target, and the time it takes you to walk to your next target you're usually filled up. The pacing seems really smooth. It's rare to have that downtime where you're out of energy and combo points. And with the proc rate on those Shadow Dances and the energy boost for Master of Shadows, I can just go from fight to fight and never have any problems. Master of Shadows especially makes a huge difference. The 35 energy cost on Symbols of Death can really slow things down, so whenever you play this spec and you're having energy problems, try picking it up. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it really works wonders. And even if you do hit that downtime, you have some cooldowns such as Shadow Blades, Gormaz's Bite, and Thistle Tea to help you out a bit. I'm still trying to figure out the most optimal way to use Shadow Dance. I think you never want to be above one charge of it, or else you run the risk of wasting that natural cooldown. So as you can see, I still need to work on that. Another thing to keep in mind is that this is all with an unleveled artifact weapon too. We got some good traits, so definitely don't take this as a final product. And here are some AoE fights. Fair warning, it's not pretty. For talents, we really don't have any decent AoE choices. For noteworthy stuff, I picked up Weapon Master, Elusiveness, and Enveloping Shadows. And even with that, it's a struggle just with 4 ponies. The best you can really do is make sure Symbols of Death is up, and then Shurikenstorm spam and keep Nightblade up on everything. And if you max out on points and you already have Nightblade up, just burn them on Eviscerate. So like I mentioned, we're in a bad state AoE wise right now. If I had to pick one thing to change with this spec, it would easily be this. And lastly, here's a longer single target fight. My talents are pretty much the same as my shorter single target fights, but for my rotation I'll try to be more bursty since I already showed you a sustained style. The burst is pretty ridiculous. What we lack in AoE we definitely make up in single target damage. As you'll see, my target dies before I can even get a chance to use all of my Shadow Dances. It's pretty crazy. I can't wait to try out PvP because I think we'll be a force to be reckoned with. We're definitely squishy, but if you play it smart and you know when to fight and when to run, I think we'll be one of the top PvP specs at release. We also have some absolutely insane honor talents to add on to all of this, so I'm very eager to try it out. But that's pretty much it. Hopefully now you have a better understanding and feel of how their core gameplay works. I think it's a fun spec. I may be biased though because Rogue was my main spec up until Cataclysm. I've always had a soft spot for them, and in pretty much every RPG, if there's a character or a class that looks like a rogue, I usually pick them. I love the lore and the identity of the Subtlety spec the most in particular. Slipping through the shadows and decimating your enemy before they even know what's going on is just something that's always appealed to me. But as for areas they could improve in, AoE needs some work obviously. I will say, and this is kind of minor, but one thing I'm disappointed in is the loss of Burst of Speed. This was my go-to talent for farming old raids. Combining that with the increased speed while stealth made rogues really good at farming. Now it seems like our mobility is tied to Shadow Strike, which of course needs a target. And that could be better than Burst of Speed in some situations, but I'm just saying that it would be nice to not have that target dependence for our mobility. So in summary, there's some good and some bad. I do think the good greatly outweighs the bad, and even then it's still beta. They have plenty of time to address the bad and hopefully fix it before release. Anyways, if you want to see more Subtlety gameplay, I also did a full dungeon run. No commentary on that though, just some raw gameplay for those of you who want to see more of what the spec is capable of. I'll have an annotation for that right here, and a link in the description if you want to see that. And as usual, feel free to leave me a message about your opinion on the state of the spec for Legion. Whether or not you like the changes though, I hope you at least found the video informative, interesting, or entertaining in some way. I had a lot of fun making it, and I hope you had a lot of fun watching it. Thanks for checking it out. I'll be doing guides like this for every spec for every class in the game, so keep an eye out for those if you're interested. And if you have any feedback or suggestions, feel free to leave me a message. There's always room for improvement. And once again, I'll have a poll up in the description if you would like to vote on the next class. Anyways, I hope you found this video helpful. Give it a like if you liked it, and if you really liked it, let me know in the comments and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching, good luck, and peace!